It was just after 7 a.m. when Isaiah Thomas pulled into the gravel lot beside the construction site. The air was still, dust hanging low from the trucks that had already come through. His pickup blended in with the others, mud-splattered, work-worn. Nothing about him looked out of place. He stepped out wearing a plain thermal shirt, khaki work pants, and steel-toe boots. A rolled-up set of blueprints sat in the passenger seat. He grabbed them, closed the door, and started toward the temporary fencing where the security check-in stood. The only thing clean on him was the leather messenger bag slung over his shoulder. He liked to keep his notes in order even if the rest of the site was chaos. A security guard glanced up from his clipboard. Middle-aged, white, name tag read Don. He looked Isaiah over once, then did a double take. Deliveries around the back, Don said without much interest, already half looking away. Isaiah paused, his voice level. I'm not a delivery. Don looked again. Still not getting it. You with electrical? Masonry? He asked, motioning vaguely toward the other workers walking past. Isaiah held up the tube of drawings. I'm the lead architect. I've got a walkthrough scheduled with Halverson Construction in 15. Don squinted, then scoffed like he'd heard a joke that didn't land. The lead architect? He repeated, skeptical. You mean like, you designed this? He waved toward the half-finished glass and steel structure behind them. Isaiah didn't flinch. I did. But Don's eyes didn't leave his face. He seemed stuck there. Isaiah stood still. No flex. No anger. Just waiting. Don scratched his head, not moving from the entrance. You got ID or something? He asked, voice slightly louder now. Isaiah nodded and reached slowly into his bag. He pulled out a slim folder, flipped it open to reveal his firm's business card, his name in raised letters, and a laminated site access badge with his photo. Don took the badge, studied it, then looked back up like it still didn't add up. I've worked this site since day one, Don said. Never seen you once. Isaiah kept his voice calm. I usually come through the north gate with the project managers. Today's meeting is on the side. Don didn't respond immediately. He handed the badge back but didn't step aside. Behind them, more workers arrived, some in heavy gear, others carrying tools and hard hats. A few slowed their pace when they saw the standoff. One of them, a younger guy in paint-stained jeans, looked from Isaiah to Don, then kept walking. You're telling me you designed this whole thing? Don asked again. This building? Isaiah nodded. From the foundation to the rooftop solar. We're still in phase 2, so you've only seen half the plan. Don let out a quiet huff. You don't look like no architect. Isaiah didn't answer. Didn't smile. Didn't explain. He just looked at Don. And waited. Don finally stepped back a half-inch, not enough to let Isaiah through, but just enough to feel like he'd acknowledged something he wasn't ready to accept. You say you're the architect, Don muttered, but I've seen a lot of guys say a lot of things. Can't be too careful these days. Isaiah didn't move. I gave you my credentials. If you still have a concern, you can call Ryan Halverson. He's expecting me. Don crossed his arms. Halverson's the site supervisor? Isaiah nodded. Don hesitated, then reached for his walkie-talkie and pressed the side button. Yeah, this is Don up front. You got a Ryan Halverson on site? There was a pause. Crackling static. Then a voice. Yeah, he's in the East Wing with the concrete crew. You need him. Don eyed Isaiah. Tell him someone's here claiming to be the architect. Isaiah something. More static. Then, you mean Isaiah Thomas? He's our guy. Let him in. We've been waiting. The line clicked off. Don lowered the radio. He didn't look embarrassed. Just annoyed. Like being wrong was inconvenient. He stepped aside without saying anything. No apology. No acknowledgement. Isaiah walked past him in silence. But he felt the shift. The quiet watching from the workers nearby. The weight of being underestimated again. And again. The path to the structure was short, but it felt longer than usual. Isaiah's boots crunched across the gravel as he passed a few workers stacking rebar and measuring lumber. Some glanced up. Others didn't bother pretending not to stare. A man in a neon vest muttered something under his breath. Isaiah caught just enough of it to know it wasn't kind. He kept walking. Inside the building shell, the temperature dropped. Steel beams rose like ribs around an open floor. The sound of drilling echoed from the far end. A foreman pointed at blueprints with a gloved hand while another man jotted down notes on a clipboard. Ryan Halverson spotted Isaiah from across the space. There he is, Ryan called, weaving through a few workers to meet him halfway. We were just about to start. He reached out and shook Isaiah's hand with a firm grip. Glad you made it. Isaiah nodded. Had a bit of a delay at the front gate. Ryan's smile faded slightly. Don? Isaiah didn't answer. He didn't need to. Ryan glanced toward the gate, jaw tightening. We'll deal with that. Come on, let's walk the floor. As they moved together, the glances followed. The whispers, too. Isaiah didn't speak much. He let the building speak for him. Every beam. Every angle. Every line that started in his head and now stood tall in steel and glass. He didn't need to explain who he was. He had already built it. The walkthrough began like all the others. Ryan pointed out updates, electrical rough-ins completed, framing on schedule, HVAC behind by 2 days. Isaiah nodded, made a few notes on his tablet, asked precise questions. But the tone of the crew around them had changed. A plumber paused mid-task, eyes trailing them as they passed. A pair of apprentices stopped whispering when Isaiah approached, pretending to focus on measurements they'd just abandoned. Then came the question, not from Ryan, but from a project manager trailing behind. "So, you're really the architect?" the man asked. Isaiah stopped walking. Turned slightly. "Yes." The man didn't seem to hear the weight in that single word. He chuckled awkwardly. "Just surprised, that's all. You don't exactly fit the image." Ryan cut in. "He fits the job. That's what matters." The man raised his hands. "Hey, no offense meant. Just unexpected." Isaiah looked at him evenly. "Only if you had a specific image in mind." The man shifted uncomfortably. Ryan said nothing. They moved on. But the silence that followed said more than the words before it. Isaiah had heard it before, in different versions, different tones. Still the same question beneath it all. "Are you sure you belong here?" By mid-morning, the team gathered in the makeshift conference room, just a plywood table, plastic chairs, and blueprints pinned to the walls. No windows. Just the low buzz of a portable fan and the smell of drywall dust. Isaiah sat at the head of the table, scanning the site plans. Ryan stood beside him, going over adjustments with the electrical subcontractor. Most of the other men in the room were quiet. One of them, a younger site engineer, watched Isaiah for a while, then finally spoke. "Hey, did you really design the facade yourself? The angles?" Isaiah nodded, still looking at the drawings. "Used passive solar calculations for the overhangs. They'll cut glare by 40% by midsummer." The engineer blinked. "Huh, that's actually smart." Isaiah looked up, not smiling. "I know." The room went still for a moment. Then Ryan clapped his hands. "Let's focus. We've got structural questions to resolve before the concrete pour next week." As the meeting continued, the skepticism started to shift. It didn't vanish. But it bent. Not from respect, not yet, but from uncertainty. They had expected a consultant. A name on an email. They didn't expect the man sitting calmly at the center of the room, knowing every angle better than they did. When the meeting wrapped, most of the crew filed out toward the break area, a shaded spot with folding chairs and a cooler full of bottled water. Isaiah stayed behind, packing up his notes. Ryan lingered, then said quietly, "You handled that well." Isaiah looked at him. "I've had practice." Ryan didn't reply right away. He glanced toward the door where the others had gone. "They'll come around," he said. Isaiah's voice was low. "I don't need them to come around. I need them to do the work right." Ryan nodded slowly. "Fair enough." Outside, as Isaiah approached the break area, the conversation dipped. A few men looked his way, then quickly looked down. Someone whispered something too low to catch. He grabbed a water bottle and sat by himself. A few minutes later, the young site engineer from earlier came over, sat across from him without a word. They sat in silence for a while, just the sound of construction and distant traffic. Then the engineer asked, "What school did you go to?" "Howard," Isaiah said. The man nodded slowly. "Never met an architect before. At least, not one that looked like you." Isaiah took a drink. "You probably have. You just didn't know it." The man didn't argue. He just sat there, thinking. The break was ending when a familiar voice cut through the air. Don, the gate guard, walking over with a coffee in hand like nothing had happened that morning. He nodded toward Isaiah. "Heard you're the boss man around here." Isaiah didn't respond. Don stood near the edge of the group, not sitting, just loud enough for everyone to hear. "You know, you caught me off guard. Didn't expect someone like you to be calling the shots." Isaiah set his water bottle down slowly. "What does someone like me mean?" Don chuckled. "Relax. I just meant regular clothes. Not what you expect from an architect, right?" No one laughed. The young engineer looked down at his boots. One of the electricians crossed his arms. Isaiah stayed calm. People say things like that when they're trying to soften what they actually meant. Don shrugged. "Hey, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Ryan appeared behind him then, his voice sharp. "Don, we've got deliveries stacking at the back entrance. You want to do your job or stand here embarrassing yourself?" Don's mouth opened slightly, then closed. He gave a quick nod and walked off without another word. The silence after was heavy. No one said anything. But when Isaiah stood, the crew shifted, not with resistance, but awareness. They were starting to see him differently. Not because of what he said, but because of how little he needed to say. Later that afternoon, Isaiah walked the upper level with the structural lead, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning every beam, bolt, and bracket. He didn't miss anything, not a crooked support, not a misplaced conduit. The lead, a seasoned man with sun-weathered skin and a cautious manner, trailed beside him. "You've got an eye for detail," he said. Isaiah didn't look up. "I'm responsible for every inch of this place." "I better." They stopped at a misaligned window frame. Isaiah pointed. "Half an inch off. That'll throw off the exterior cladding." The man squinted, measured, nodded slowly. "You're right. There was no pushback. No excuse. Just respect, quiet and earned. Down below, a few crew members glanced up as Isaiah moved along the catwalk. He paused once, looking out at the structure taking shape around him. Steel, glass, and concrete. All built from a design that came from his hands. From his mind. He didn't smile. But he felt something settle, an invisible line shifting in the minds of those watching. From question to recognition. Not full acceptance. Not yet. But they were starting to believe what he already knew. He belonged here. It happened near the end of the day. One of the older contractors, Ken, cornered Ryan just outside the trailer office. His voice wasn't raised, but it carried. Look, I'm just saying, if we're gonna be working with someone like that, we should have been told up front. Ryan's jaw tightened. Someone like what? Ken shrugged. Come on, man. You know what I mean. No, Ryan said flatly. Say it. Ken glanced over his shoulder, then leaned in. This job's got a rhythm. People know how to talk to each other. You drop someone like him in the middle of it without warning, it throws everything off. Inside the trailer, Isaiah was wrapping up his notes. He didn't need to hear every word, just the tone. He stood still for a moment, then closed his tablet and walked out the door. Ken turned as Isaiah approached. Didn't flinch. Didn't apologize. Isaiah looked at him. I didn't need an introduction, he said quietly. You just needed fewer assumptions. Ken scoffed. It's not about you. It's about the crew. They're used to things running a certain way. Isaiah stepped closer, not aggressive, not loud, just present. Then it's time they get used to better. Ken didn't respond. Didn't need to. The moment had already done its work. The next morning was quiet. No stares. No comments. Just work. Isaiah arrived early. Earlier than usual. Walked the perimeter alone before most of the crew clocked in. It gave him space to think. When the others arrived, they were different. Subtle things. The young engineer nodded first this time. A couple of drywallers said morning like it was habit. Even Don at the gate offered a stiff sir as Isaiah passed. He didn't expect a smile. Didn't want one? On the south wing, a framing crew paused when Isaiah stopped to inspect their work. He didn't say much. Just pointed once, then again. The foreman adjusted the angle, nodded. Good eye, he said. Isaiah nodded back. That was all. Back near the trailer, Ryan caught up with him, holding a printout. City inspector's coming this afternoon, he said. Just so you know. Isaiah took the paper, glanced at it, then handed it back. I'll be here. Ryan hesitated. You think things are settling? Isaiah looked out across the site. Saw movement. Coordination. Less tension in the air. They're adjusting, he said. Then he looked at Ryan. And I'm not. The city inspector arrived just after 1. A tall man in a navy polo with a clipboard and a practiced sense of authority. He greeted Ryan with a firm handshake, then looked past him at Isaiah. And you are? Isaiah stepped forward. Isaiah Thomas. Lead architect. The inspector blinked. Oh, was expecting someone else. You're with Hartwell Design. I am Hartwell Design, Isaiah said, voice steady. The inspector shifted slightly, recovered. Right? Okay then. Let's get started. They moved through the site, Isaiah walking alongside, answering questions before they were asked, pointing out problem areas already in process of correction. The inspector made notes, nodded, asked technical questions Isaiah answered without hesitation. After 30 minutes, they stopped near the west-facing stairwell. The inspector tapped the clipboard. You've got this well under control, he said. Isaiah didn't reply right away. He glanced at the structure, then back at him. I don't need to control it. I just need them to see it right. The inspector gave a short, uncertain laugh. Well, they will now. Isaiah didn't smile. That's not the goal, he said. The inspector raised an eyebrow. Then what is? Isaiah looked back at the crew scattered across the site, still working, now watching less. To make sure the next guy doesn't have to prove it first. By the end of the week, the tone had changed. Not in big ways, no one made speeches, no one apologized. But the crew worked cleaner. Faster. They stopped second-guessing his calls. Questions came with respect now, not challenge. Even Ken, the one who'd bristled the most, started showing Isaiah marked-up notes before implementing changes. Nothing said, but everything meant. Don didn't say anything else either. But he didn't block the entrance again. And he didn't look away when Isaiah passed. At lunch, Isaiah sat alone as usual. But today, someone pulled up a chair beside him quietly without fanfare. It was the electrician who hadn't looked him in the eye on day 1. Hey, he said, opening his sandwich. You ever do the Prescott job last year? Isaiah nodded. That was ours. The man gave a low whistle. Cleanest lines I've ever seen. Isaiah said nothing, but a small nod passed between them. Word was spreading. Not through emails. Not through memos. Just through the way people stood near him now. The way they watched him without suspicion. The way silence had shifted from doubt to quiet respect. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't demanded anything. He'd just shown up and stayed. Late Friday afternoon, a black SUV pulled into the lot. Clean, tinted, out of place among the beat-up pickups and flatbeds. A woman stepped out, late 40s, sharp gray suit, clipboard in hand. She moved with purpose. Isaiah noticed her before most did. He stepped down from the scaffold and met her halfway. "Ms. Delgado," he said. She smiled. "Mr. Thomas. Just here for a final review." Corporate wanted eyes on the site. They shook hands. As they walked the perimeter, she asked questions, took notes. Her tone was professional but not distant. When they stopped near the east wing, she lowered her voice. "How's the integration been? The team?" Isaiah paused, looked over at the workers still scattered across the job site. Some waving, some just nodding now when he passed. He exhaled slowly. It took a minute. Delgado nodded. "Heard there were some things." "There usually are," Isaiah said quietly. "But they're learning. Most of them." She studied him for a second. "And you?" "I'm not here to be liked." Delgado smiled slightly. "Good." They finished the round and headed back toward the trailer. Workers watched them walk side by side. No one said anything. But now no one looked surprised either. The site emptied slowly as the sun dropped behind the scaffolding. Machines powered down, toolboxes locked, boots shuffled toward waiting trucks. Isaiah stayed. He stood alone on the upper deck, looking out over the frame of a building that, months from now, would be glass and steel and light. His fingerprints were in every joint, every angle. No plaque would carry his name. No speeches would be made in his honor. But it was his. Below, the gate clanged shut for the night. Don gave a faint nod on his way out. No words. Isaiah looked at the sky, clear, warm, no wind. He pulled out the small notebook he always kept in his pocket. Jotted down one line about the stairwell detail. Closed it. A voice echoed from the ground. The young engineer. "Heading out, Mr. Thomas. Need anything else?" Isaiah shook his head. "We're good." The man hesitated. "See you Monday?" Isaiah gave a slow nod. "Monday." The engineer walked off. Isaiah remained still. Just for a few seconds longer. Then he turned, walked back toward the trailer, boots silent against the steel. No one clapped. No one cheered. But they'd seen him. And next time, they'd remember.